don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. And we sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. This is the 468th episode of the Political Spotlight. I am your host, Kristopher H. Bilbrey. Hope everybody's doing well. I am in need of a serious haircut. I tell you what. Why don't we get a bunch of likes on the screen? Hit that like button right now as hard as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many people as possibly can. Leave Facebook. Go to YouTube. Everybody watch this on YouTube right tonight. Get a bunch of likes. I'll go get a haircut tomorrow. I need to get it. I can't deal with it anymore. It's unruly. I can't even get it gelled down like. Right, like if I leave the shower, it's gelled, and 10 minutes later, it looks like this. It's crazy. So, yeah, I got to get a haircut tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day. Smash that like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. Do all of the other things. If you want to communicate with us, you can communicate one of two ways. If you're here live, you can communicate over on the right-hand side. And if you're here in the future watching via replay, you can comment down below and we will get back to you at some point, I promise. A little caveat. A little bit of a caveat tonight. I want you guys to comment. I want you guys to talk amongst yourselves. Enjoy the show. Talk to me even if you would like. Kate's going to put the comments up as she does. But because of the topics that I'm going to be talking about tonight, I'm not going to do a whole lot of looking at the chat. Maybe I might not even look at the chat at all tonight. I might just turn it off. I might let Kate do her thing. She can put up what she wants. Just because I will not get sidetracked in a crazy rabbit hole discussion because we got to get through the topics that I want to get through. So that's what we're going to do. And I want to make sure that we do that. So, do we have any big news for anyone? Anything that I need to talk to you about? Nothing. I can't think of anything major. If you want to smash that, those buttons. I did see that banner too, by the way. If you want to follow us on social media, there's the social media links. That's where it is. The Facebook links. And no, Tweety Bird. I want because listen, I'll go back afterwards and I will watch, and I will then communicate with you after the show. I'll respond to the things that happen. But I want to get through it, and I don't think, here's the number one thing that I can promise you. If you're doing what I'm telling you to do, if you're listening to this right, everybody should like what I'm saying. If everybody doesn't like what I'm saying, then if you don't like what I'm saying at some point tonight, you're not doing it right. If you aren't mad probably about something that I'm saying at some point tonight, then you're not doing it right. So that's how we're going to go. We're going to talk about a Muncie, Delaware County topic. I had a couple of people be like, what, you've not been talking about Muncie in a while. And I always have to remember, I have to remind people, man, it's kind of, I was talking to my grandparents the other day, maybe it was yesterday, and I was like, it's kind of like being a musician that's put out like a whole bunch of albums. And, the one thing that you can say about the Beatles is no one song sounds like any other song. Like they changed, not even from album to album, but they changed like from song to song to song, basically. And that's pretty cool. It's hard to do that. Like that's, most bands wouldn't do well doing that. Most bands get a sound, you imagine AC/DC. They're playing the same 4 chords. Every song sounds the same. They're all great songs, but it is what it is. But bands, what they'll do is after they've been around for a while, they like find themselves and they change it up and they start doing experimental stuff. And then they go out on tour and they're like, we're not going to play any of the great old hits. We're going to play all this new music. And people's like, no, you suck. Play Freebird, that kind of stuff. And bands always are like, man, well, we want to play the new music, but the fans want to, all that stuff. And here's what happens. I always get, some people are showing that. Some people are. I'm trying to figure out what exactly they've done. I looked at that before we came on. Israel bombed a nuclear plant in Iran, so it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. But here's the deal: I get people arguing with me all the time. If I talk about Muncie, people say you're not talking about Winchester or Newcastle or Anderson. If I talk about Anderson, people say you're not talking about Muncie. If I talk about the state, people say you're not talking about. If I have Catherine on, people are mad. If I don't have Catherine on, people are mad. So I feel like I've really made it. Like that's really something good. I like that. So tonight's going to be kind of like that. Tonight's going to be like that. So we're going to be talking about they hit Iran and Iraq. Those are like 2 different places. We're going to be talking about a Muncie, Delaware County topic, and then we're going to be talking about an American topic. We're going to be talking about the press conference from today, the Department of Homeland Security press conference. And then we're going to be talking about the press conference today. And then we're going to be talking about the Delaware County Vote Center debate. So these are our 2 topics. And wildly, I think that they are very similar topics. They are wildly similar. So we're going to talk about these 2 topics. And the number one thing is people need to know the name of tonight's episode is Nuance and Acknowledging Shades of Gray. Notice I didn't say gay. I guess I could have, but I said gray. Nuance, acknowledging shades of gray. You know, the thing is, I've always believed. See it. Let us know what goes on. I'm monitoring it, but it's nothing. I mean, we won't know anything for a while, and there's nothing that we can do with it. So, I mean, I will give commentary on it once we have a little bit of information. The sky is a little red there still. The alarms are still going off in the background. All right. So it takes a little bit of nuance to fully understand political beliefs. I think specifically my political beliefs, but I think politics in general. I believe that people view much of what make up politics through a very broad lens, which leads to a lot of excessive drama. Most political occurrences, in my opinion, should be examined closely, action by action, words by words, minute by minute, rather than just at a wide view. I want you to consider both of these topics. We're going to review the press conference from earlier today, held by Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. Secretary Noem addressed the ongoing demonstrations against President Donald Trump's immigration policies and the updated public and updated the public on enforcement actions in the United States, particularly in Los Angeles, California. During the press conference, California Senator Alejandro Padilla, Democrat, walked into the room and began to ask questions while Secretary Noem was speaking. Padilla was quickly confronted by several federal law enforcement officials who physically removed him from the room, pushing him to the ground outside of the room in the hallway and handcuffing him momentarily. Despite a brief scuffle, Senator Padilla continued attempting to move forward, pushing back against the law enforcement officers, asking questions, and only started to identify himself verbally by his name after the situation turned physical. And we will watch and listen to that. Right away, both sides of the political spectrum begin screaming their hot takes. However, I have a little bit of a different perspective than both the Republicans and the Democrats. It's shaped by a little bit of nuance regarding what happened. And I think you have to look at the big picture and then zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. And you have to look at it second by second, action by action. You have to look at the overall situation to get in my opinion, you have to look at the smallest pieces to get the overall picture. Can you manage your emotions long enough to consider what my thoughts are on this? You'll have to stay tuned and find out. From there, I will apply the same nuanced approach to examining the vote center conundrum that Delaware County, Indiana is currently facing. This issue has been discussed by Delaware County officials for at least the last 8 years, if not longer. Yet something always seems to arise and derail it at the last moment. However, some aspects have changed within the last 6 months, and the topic has kind of now flipped, and it's also up for debate again. Similar to the press conference fiasco, both sides are eager to point fingers. However, again, I'm going to say not so fast. Let's apply a little bit of nuance to the issue before blaming each other. Most political arguments require more nuance than many people are willing to acknowledge, and that's truly our problem with the current political landscape. Politics and political issues tend to be complex and multifaceted, and individuals are simply unwilling or unable. I don't know which. Sometimes I think it's just unwilling, and sometimes I think it's absolutely unable to recognize the subtle distinctions and variations within any topic or issue. Simply put, most Americans don't like the fact that an issue can be both right and wrong. And that's where I stand. I think an issue or a topic or matter can be both right and wrong. A person can be both good and bad. Everyone wants it to be black or white, and they just can't wrap their minds around the idea of acknowledging shades of gray that exist between opposing viewpoints. So that's what we're going to do here in this episode. I'm monitoring, from what I can tell, what's going on with the Israeli situation. The Secretary of State of the United States has come out and said that we are not involved in this. So while this is something that we certainly should monitor and will monitor, we're not involved in it. We're not involved in it currently. So, you know, we probably need to get more information. I mean, I've got nothing to say about it at the moment. We've got to wait and see what's going on here. So I'll need to hear from a couple of other people before we see what's happening. But I will keep watching that. We'll see what goes on. I'm not seeing, right now, all the talking heads are in the exact same spot. We're just all waiting for information. Everybody's waiting for information. We're just all looking at the same screen, watching the same sky scene. There's nothing really to see here yet. So we'll have to watch that for a minute. All right. Moving on to we'll do this. Moving on to the Homeland Security press conference. Give me a second here. Let me get this saved. Okay. So I don't know if you guys Brandon. Times 3, because I think there's like 3 books. So there's like 150 Shades of Gray. All right. So first up, I want to take a look. We're gonna look at a couple different views of this press conference. Because I think that it's important to see this from a couple different vantage points. So I think the total press conference was about 45 minutes today. We're not obviously going to listen through the entire 45-minute press conference. If you want to watch that, it's clearly out there. This first video is going to be about a minute and 10 seconds.
In this country and what they have tried to insert.
Secretary, I want to know what you insist
So I want to say thank you.
Okay, so the first thing, she's talking, and the voice that's talking over her is Padilla. Now, what I recognized right from here, this 10-minute video, or this minute and 10-second video, starts from right before he walks into the room to the point that he starts talking. And it's strange because she's talking, all right? She's speaking. It's not like she's taking questions. She's addressing the press officials that are there and anybody else in the room. And a couple of things that people need to look at when they're looking at this. Number one, this is not like a city council meeting. This is not a meeting that's the same. It's like under the specifically like how a council meeting would be under the open door law. Like they can just drop that, hey, we're going to have a press conference at any time. They put it out. I mean, they obviously like to get the press enough time to get there. They put that information out and they say, this is what we're going to do. Okay. Senator Padilla was in the building getting ready to be briefed by someone else. And while he was waiting for that briefing, which wasn't a press, it wasn't like a press briefing. It was, he was getting ready to be briefed with other officials. And while he was waiting for that briefing, that he was there for, he overheard that Kristi Noem was having a press conference a couple of doors down. So he walked out of where he was and he just walked in here. Now they are in a federal building, which means it's fairly secure. They've had to go in and go through the metal detectors and you know, the people who aren't these elected officials probably have to show some kind of ID, walk in, and it's a process, and you can't have any weapons and yada, yada, yada. Okay. So obviously if he's in here, he's like somebody. All right. Now, I don't know that these people know him. I know a lot of people from Congress, but I don't know them all specifically if they're not like mine or they're not from around here or they're not like major big shakers. I don't know all of the faces. And so I don't know if she knows who he is by sight, if she doesn't know who he is by sight, if any of the people in the room know who he is by sight or not by sight. Okay, so I want you to listen to this. She's talking, and the very first thing that we hear from him is he is talking over her, asking questions. He doesn't wait for her to pause. He just starts talking over her. He doesn't say, hello, I'm Senator Padilla. He just starts leveling questions at her, but we cannot see him or where he's at. So keep that in mind. So let's hear.
In this country and what they have tried to insert.
There it is. He says, Secretary, I want to know. She looks at him and she's like thrown off a little bit, looking at him, but she's still talking. So he starts off, his first words are, Secretary, I want to know.
So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to.
Okay, and so he's still yet to say who he is or what's going on. Now you can hear that there's a little bit of scuffle, and you hear him saying, sir, because the guy's actually pushing on him now. The camera starts to swing this way.
Hands up. Also, I want to talk.
Now you hear the other people saying, hands up, hands up. Now it's at this point that he says, listen what he says. He says, I'm a senator.
Also, I want to talk.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
For the secretary, because the fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically how many of our.
I think it's wild how she kept going through this. She just kept talking. She's like, well, they've got him over there. I'm going to keep talking. She didn't like stop. She just kept on rolling. Very weird. Okay. So we watch this for a second.
Agents have been doxxed for.
Now they just immediately say, all right, nothing going on there. And they cut back to her.
How they have been targeted and how their families have been put in jeopardy, and that we're not going to allow that anymore as well. That those individuals who are purposely endangering our ICE agents and our law enforcement officers and their families.
I mean, this guy never looked concerned. Like, I thought maybe he was a statue.
Will be prosecuted for what
Very
they're
strange.
doing as far as perpetuating violence on them.
Okay, so that happened. Now we're going to go watch see where this other one is here. We're gonna go watch another one here. Okay. And I want you to see what happens here. Now this is a little bit gives us a little bit more of a view of what's happening here.
Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kelly O'Donnell, and we begin with breaking news. As tensions continue to escalate over the president's deployment of military troops to quell pockets of unrest in Los Angeles and assist with immigration raids. The turmoil and instability on full display as we witness what was really an extraordinary and unsettling moment in Los Angeles as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was speaking about the White House's use of the military, and she was interrupted by California's senior Democratic U.S. Senator Alex Padilla.
We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city. So I want to say thank you to every single person.
Okay, right here. He got up to, it's not like they stopped him right as he came in the door. He walked up to her within 10 feet of her. Okay, so watch this again.
Burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city. So I want to say thank you to every.
Okay, so right here, the gentleman's pushing against him. Okay,
single person.
They're pushing on him. There's a couple of law enforcement. The guy in the green here is media.
That
they're pushing
has
him.
Been able to do.
Okay, they have him turned around. They literally have him turned around and are pushing him, and he turns to go back towards her. Now, in all fairness, I would like to know from these law enforcement officers, did they know who he was at this point? Yes or no? If they did not know who he was at this point, then they're acting accordingly.
Do this.
Okay, they're pushing him out. They're telling him to put his hands up.
I want to talk.
Senator Alex.
Okay, now right here he says, "I'm Senator Alex Padilla." Even once he says that, he's just saying it. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Watch what's happening here,
Typically,
I have questions for the secretary.
They pushed him. He's now for a second time pushing back into them. I have questions for the secretary.
Politicians in
because
Los
the fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent.
They pushed him against the wall, and he's now pushed back. This is the third time that he's pushed back against them. Okay.
Criminals that you're rotating on your.
They get
I
him
also
out
want to talk about
into the
specifically.
hallway.
So that is a
Okay. And then here we go with the pictures of what's going on out in the hallway.
U.S. Senator and his team was recording the incident from inside the room as law enforcement officials restrained the senator.
Okay, right here.
Sir, hands up.
He turns and pushes.
Senator Alex Padilla, I have questions for the secretary.
He's pushing back.
Because the fact of the matter is,
Push back.
a dozen violent criminals.
He pushes back. They push him out.
I also want to talk about specifically how many of our ICE agents have been docked.
They take him down to the ground.
On the ground. Hands behind your back.
And they're not,
Hands behind your
they're
back.
not
If you don't,
hurting
get in my
him.
hands, go ahead, put him behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here.
Now, someone just said there's no recording allowed in here.
No, there's no recording allowed out here per FBI, right?
Padilla spoke to reporters just moments.
Okay, no recording out here
Months ago,
allowed.
the incident.
Here, I don't know what they said. Okay, so they handcuffed him there. Okay, so we now saw what happened there. Now I want to take you and let you hear. Okay, we're gonna watch a couple more angles of this before we go and we listen to what he says. All right, I think that this is very important to hear what he has to say about it.
that has been able to do this. Also, I want to talk specifically to the rioters and to the politicians in Los Angeles.
A half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically how many of our ICE agents have been doxxed.
And she just goes back onto it, and they all just go back to normal.
Their families have been.
That's very, very strange. Okay. Here's yet one more view.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to
Heads off.
how many.
All right. So we watched that. Okay. I want you to now listen to what he has to say about this.
Good afternoon. Thanks for your time.
Uh,
Guys, line aside. We're right here already. Line aside.
Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Never put your hand on it.
Now, right there, even here, it sounds like there's a problem. Sounds like somebody just said, "Don't ever put your hands on me." I don't even know what's going on. There's some kind of a tussle out here. Listen to this.
Everybody.
Never put your hand on me.
Never put your hands on me.
Line aside.
Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Never put your hand on me.
Who the hell knows what's going on out there?
Good afternoon, everybody. Senator Alex Padilla. You guys have some questions. I'm going to read a brief statement. I will not be taking questions, but allow me to read my statement. I'm here in Los Angeles today, and I was here in the federal building, in the conference room, awaiting a scheduled briefing from federal officials as part of my responsibility as a senator to provide oversight and accountability.
Okay. He was in the building as part of his responsibility, waiting for an update, waiting for a briefing. He left that briefing, which are his responsibilities. He just said, though, he was there doing his responsibilities. And I know that you all think I'm preparing to pounce on him. Just bear with me. We're just going through what we're hearing and what we're seeing. So don't get, I know you're all in a tizzy, but just relax. We're going to walk through this piece by piece. All right, listen.
While I was waiting for the briefing.
While I was waiting for the briefing, while he was waiting for what his responsibilities were.
So I learned that Secretary Noem was having a press conference a couple doors down the hall. Since the beginning of the year, but especially over the course of recent weeks, several of my colleagues have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information in response to our inquiries. And so I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize.
Okay, there's a couple of really important key factors here, what he's saying. I understand, listen, I'm not a senator, but I know what it's like. Thank you for that message, Kate. I just got that, and that is important. I know what it's like to be asking somebody something and not getting answers. I, too, have been places where I've been waiting for an event to happen, and while I'm there waiting and nothing's happening, I, too, have heard, wait, something else is going on down the hall, and I've been like, oh, wait, I'm interested in that. And I, too, have left waiting in one area to go try to get answers in another. Like, you could do both. I'm not saying that he can't do both. And I can understand him being heated because he's not getting answers. Okay, so I'm with him there.
Just as we emphasize the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question.
He was there peacefully, he says, okay? And he had a question. At one point, he had a question. He started asking questions as soon as he made it into the room. It wasn't like he attended the press conference, she was talking, and he's like, oh, wait, question. He came in the room asking questions. He like rounded the room, got halfway in, and just started talking over her, all right? If I did that, if I did what he did, they would have put their hands on me and the same thing would have happened. You didn't see any of the journalists there getting up and walking to her and asking. They were sitting there listening. The questions generally come at the end, but let's continue on.
So I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not.
Okay, he was not arrested, and that's confirmed.
Detained.
He says he wasn't detained. Now, I think that's differently. To me, if my ass is in handcuffs, I'm detained. I think he was detained, but he wasn't arrested. So, I mean, I'm happy that he doesn't feel like he was detained. I think he was, but he claims he wasn't. But, I mean, it was just for a little bit of time. They momentarily did it, but then they got him out of it really quickly once they realized who he was, which lets me believe that they did not know who he was prior to that.
I will say this. If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cucks, to day laborers.
Cucks?
Out
What?
in Los Angeles
Who?
community and throughout California and throughout the country.
All right, now I want to pause this really quickly. I'm going to read this to you. Thanks to producer Kate for throwing this up here. Per Reuters, the Senator Padilla was not wearing his United States Senator security pin. They all have these pins they wear. It's similar to this. It's similar to this City of Muncie pin that I always talk about, and I want one of the Delaware County because I did work for Delaware County. I worked in the prosecutor's office, so I would like to have one. Here's mine from Muncie. I would like to have one for the prosecutor's office. So I would like to have one of those. Whoever's out there listening, because I didn't get mine. Anywho, they have those. He did not. We can see here he didn't have it on. And there's so much video. He did not have that on. He didn't have a lanyard on. He didn't have something on his pants, an ID clip or whatever telling, who he is. He just walked in there. He was not wearing that. He physically resisted law enforcement when confronted. The Deputy Director Bongino said, referring to the lapel pins, senators typically wear them in the Capitol or wear them, when they're in federal buildings. And he says, our FBI personnel acted completely appropriately while assisting Secret Service. That's a statement from the deputy director of the FBI. I fully believe, I mean, from what I saw there. Let me tell you, I was sitting at my grandparents when I first watched this, and the only thing I saw was this press conference going on, and they were pressing this man down the room and out in the hallway, and then I heard that he was handcuffed, and I was immediately outraged. The moment that I saw that, I was immediately outraged. I'm going to tell you why. I have been speaking in a meeting where I had the right to be, I had the right to speak, and men with badges and guns put their hands on me. They put my hands behind my back. They arrested me. They took my liberty from me. I was put in jail for speaking. So I've been through this, and I was immediately outraged. I was sitting there talking to my grandpa, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. I don't like this. What they did to him is not good. But then I watched more of what was happening, and I saw more of what was going on, and it was a little more gray than what we originally saw. I don't like here when he stood out here and he said, if this is how they treat a senator, well, then imagine how they're going to treat a farmer, or I don't know what he said, a cuck, or whoever else a cook or a cop, or I don't know who he said they're treating. But I think that's a little disingenuous, because at the point they were treating him that way, they did not know he was a senator. He was a man that was forcefully approaching the secretary and yelling questions. Generally, we do not see that out of people in these areas. Now, if he wanted to be mad, if he wanted to raise his voice, if he wanted to wait until she was taking questions, and he wanted to say, Secretary Noem, I am Senator Padilla, and I am, shame on you. I am pissed off. There are people here and whatever. I'm down with that. And if they would have arrested him at that point, that would have been a no-go. I would not have agreed with. That would have been in the wrong, and we would have had a serious problem on our hands. That would have been a serious issue. If he was a member of the press, if he was a secretary, and he was in that room, or a senator, and he was in that room, and because during the question and answer period, he asked a question and that they just simply didn't like, and they drug him out of there, that would have been a problem. But he has some responsibility for how they perceived him. He ran in there, walked in there, pretty heated, it seems like, asking questions, just talking over her. That's something's a little off with that. Okay, let's continue on. Let him say his piece here.
We will hold this administration accountable.
Do so. I want you to do so.
And we'll have more to say. We'll have more to say in the coming days. Let me say just briefly in Spanish.
Okay, so now he reads that statement in Spanish, but he doesn't take any questions. And that's that. Now, I want to take you, and I want you to hear what some of the representatives and some other senators have to say about what happened. And I want you guys to listen to this.
I think all of us are still in some state of shock over the video that we just watched a half an hour ago of one of the most respected leaders in all of the Congress, Alex Padilla, a person of just unquestioned integrity, someone who has brought great compassion for the people of our state and country.
You see how now Jeffries doesn't have it on, and Schiff doesn't have it on, but this man back here in the gray, he has it on. This woman here, she has it on. This man back here, he has it on. This man back here, he has it on. 1, 2, 3, 4 senators in this group all have on their security button, their security pin. We can see it here. Those are the security pins that literally, if anybody sees that, that gives them a little bit of understanding. Okay, this is who we're dealing with. All right, here we go.
And to see him abused that way, to see him brought down to the ground, to see him go to a press conference to ask questions, which is not.
See, here's the thing. This is what fires people up, because I witnessed what I witnessed. I then heard this before I saw anything else. And for the first time, I'm like agreeing with Schiff. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gross. But then I witnessed what happened. And it's a little bit more nuanced than just what we saw. And we got to be careful with how we see and the way that things are packaged for us. Because if he had been Senator Padilla standing there, listening, doing his thing, representing the people of California, asking questions, taking her to task, holding the administration accountable, and had he been arrested, had he been pushed out of there or detained or stopped, that would have been abuse. What would have happened if that wouldn't have been Senator Padilla and a man would have walked past her, walked up to her, and blew her brains out on live TV, and they didn't push up on him? That would have been a problem. Okay, let's continue on.
Not only his right, but his obligation, and to be mishandled that way. This is an assault not only on...
I don't have a right to just straight, flat out be an asshole and go and completely disrupt things going on. I have a right to be heard. I have a right to ask questions. But contrary to popular belief on some people, there is a way to do things. There is a way to act.
On the person of Alex Padilla, but it's an assault on our democracy. This is an administration that has no respect for our democracy, for our institutions, for the separation of powers, for a co-equal branch of government. It has no respect for the people of California. This is a president who would call in military troops against the wishes of our own government, when it would only inflame the matter. And now this terrible abuse of this wonderful public servant. One of the things that I treasure about the U.S. Senate is you can come from anywhere, you can start from anywhere, and you can end up in the U.S. Senate. And no one better embodies that part of the American dream and the dream of our democracy than Alex Padilla. And there he is, going to this press conference to advocate for those who are most vulnerable, to ask the questions that need to be answered, like what is the basis under the law or constitution to, over the objection of the governor, to federalize the guard.
You were off screen, Kate, but I don't know if you could hear me or not, but I told everybody, see, you can see here in this press conference, they're all wearing those pins. Not all of them. Schiff isn't wearing it and Jeffries isn't, but you can see a lot of them have those security pins. They're these round pins here. You can see a bunch of them are wearing them. And it just goes to show you again, he might have had his on him somewhere, but it wasn't on anywhere that was visible.
Use against our own people in California. What is the lawful basis, if any, for that action? And if not, what should the consequences be? I understand why Secretary Noem doesn't want to answer these questions, because she can't. But it is Alex Padilla's job to ask those questions and to demand those answers. And we are proud of him. We are proud of him. We are proud of his courage and his steadfastness and his vigorous representation of the people of California. And we cherish his voice, and we will not let this stand. Thank you.
Democrat Leader Jeffries.
Trump administration is a disgrace. Secretary Noem is a disgrace. The manhandling of Senator Alex Padilla was a complete and total disgrace. Senator Padilla is a good man, a decent man, a patriotic man, and a hardworking man. He's the very embodiment of what a United States senator should represent.
None
In
of
this great
that
country of ours
has
anchored in
anything
the
to do
principle
with
of
what we
self-government.
witnessed.
He was at that press conference doing his job, asking questions about what is taking place in California, the state that he represents, and on behalf of the American people. And he was recklessly and aggressively manhandled. That was unacceptable. It was unconscionable. It was unpatriotic. It's un-American. And every single person who was involved in manhandling Senator Padilla should be held accountable to the full extent of the law. So this is not going to end until there is accountability and until the Trump administration changes its behavior. This administration is not about law and order. It's about lawlessness and disorder. And that's what we've seen from day one of the Trump administration. When Donald Trump pardoned hundreds of violent felons who brutally assaulted the Capitol.
And now we take this and we're repackaging it with something totally different, which great. If you want to have comment and commentary and opinions on all of that other stuff, that's fantastic. What we're talking about right now is specifically, did we witness the violation of the First Amendment? Did we witness some fascist, some dictator taking away and banishing from the kingdom dissenters? Or did we witness someone who's a good man, someone who's a public servant? I don't know him. He doesn't represent me. I can't tell you what he's like. I don't know anything about him. But I'll take their word for it. He's a good man. Did we witness a good man make a lapse in judgment, enter a room? He's used to people knowing who he is and, you know, jumping when he says jump. Did we witness that man make a quick snap judgment that got him in a situation in which he was faced with consequences that others think that he should not have had to face? He, you know, did he round that room and walk up to the first law enforcement guy there and say, "Hey, I'm Senator Padilla, and I'm going to stand here and ask questions. You know, this is who I am. Hey, thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you for your service. I'm just going to stand here. I got some questions." No, he rounded the corner, and he was in that room, and he was asking questions within seconds of being in there, loudly enough that you can hear him over her, and he's not mic'd up. He doesn't have a lapel mic on. He does not have a lapel mic on. He doesn't. There's no there's nothing that is echoing his voice other than how forceful he was. And that again speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. So, you know, I didn't like seeing what I saw. And I know that there's a lot of people out there, and there's people, you know, that are, I know that there's people that's mad at me for my take on this, but he put himself in a situation where that happened. And I feel like the law enforcement in that room acted responsibly. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be very clear. Let's say, again, it wasn't a senator. Let's say it was me. Let's say I was there to cover the briefing that he was going to cover. And I had my camera and I was going to cover the briefing. And while I'm sitting there waiting, maybe it's running behind or whatever, I hear, oh, Secretary Noem's down giving a press conference. And I just run in there, balls to the wall, going crazy, a bull in a china shop, and start yelling questions, talking over her. And those people put their hands up on me and start pushing me out and telling me to put my hands up and push me out. First of all, the very first time, first off, I wouldn't have ran in there like that. I would have walked in, tapped somebody on the shoulder and said, hey, I'm with the media. I'm here to, do whatever. I'm going to stand out of the way. And I would have waited till the question and answer period. And I would have started talking. And if I was angry, I would have walked in there angry and done the same thing. And the first time I had a chance to ask a question, I would have asked the question angry. He still could have got his point across. But had I walked in there like he would have, and they first pushed up against me, first of all, I would not have pushed back on them. I would have been like, oh my God, I completely lost my mind. I am so sorry. But he kept pushing back. Maybe the first time I can forgive him. I'll even give him the second time. When he's trying to push back the third time, he's actively resisting. Now, they didn't arrest him, so he's not resisting arrest. He's not going to be charged. And even he, out of his mouth, he was forced out of that room, forced to the ground, and he was handcuffed. And he said, and we heard out of his own voice, his own mouth, he said, I was not arrested and I was not detained. Now, in my opinion, when you're handcuffed, you're detained. We talked about this through the Henry County. When law enforcement push you around and put hands on you and they're directing you someplace you don't want to go, you're detained. Period. He doesn't see it that way, so it must not have been that bad. So, all in all, I think this is a learning moment for everybody. Maybe the people in the room should have known who he was. That's their bad. I'll give that to him. Maybe they should have known he's a senator from California. Maybe they should have known him by face. But I just I don't know. And I lost it. I completely lost this. There was a CNN analyst. Let me see this. There was a CNN analyst that said that even a guy that's normally real hardcore, ready to jump on everything like this. Yeah, let me see if this is it. CNN analyst who once served as an FBI special agent defended some of the tactics used by Secret Service and FBI personnel in their clash with Alex Padilla Thursday. Appearing on CNN's The Arena, security correspondent Josh Campbell said that agents acted appropriately in escorting the senator out of the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference after he interrupted. And he's quoted as saying, from a law enforcement perspective, we're really looking at 3 separate incidents that happened within a short period of time, Campbell explained. First, you have the DHS secretary who was addressing the press. This was not a Q&A period, and she was interrupted. She was interrupted by someone who was speaking very loudly, and at that point, her security detail confronts what we obviously now know to be the senator. And at that point, he is now going to be escorted out. You can't interrupt something like that that's already in progress without having those consequences. That would happen to me. This is not a First Amendment rights issue. That's not something that you can do. I'm going to tell you, if he doesn't have a lawsuit, if that would have happened to me, I would have been like, yep, I screwed up. I don't have a lawsuit. It's not the same thing as what happened in Winchester. It's not the same thing that happened in Madison County, and it's not the same thing that we witnessed in Indianapolis on Monday. The second incident, Josh Campbell goes on and says, in my view, happens the moment as officers are trying to lead him out. He turns and walks back towards those agents. At that point, from a security detail perspective, we're taking this person out against their will, no matter what. When they push on him the first time, and if he would have turned and walked, they'd go hands off. He goes out, they'd figure it out. But the second that he pushes against them, bam! It doesn't matter who this person is. It doesn't matter if the house is burning down. This man is going out those doors on 2 feet, on his head, being kicked, being punched, or however, but he's going out that door. We've asked the person, and again, this is all happening very quickly, but the moment he then turns to them, they realize this is not someone who's going to comply. Campbell, though, did express concern about the agents forcing Senator Padilla to the floor and handcuffing him after he had already been ejected from the press conference. There will be a big question raised about those kind of tactics, Campbell says. Were there other options that were available to the federal agents as well as the FBI police officer there who was responsible for security in that FBI building? What they do is they actually order him to his knees and then quickly shove him down to the ground where he is then handcuffed. So again, you're in a federal building. People are screened for weapons. Him having a gun or some type of device like that would not be a concern for those officers. So there will be a question about whether those tactics were necessary or not. You know, I don't know. Listen, the way that he said it, Padilla says it, I wasn't detained. So he wasn't apparently too bothered by that. Now, he will be now, and now that he can make it a big thing and it's going to be a big spectacle, but it shouldn't be. And this is a situation where if the left wants credibility, they can say, whoops, this was a screw up. We're sorry. Now, they can still say to hell with Donald Trump, to hell with Kristi Noem. They're all bad people. We want to hold them accountable. I want to question them. Do this, do that. They can say all of that they want. But if they want the credibility here, say, our bad. That's the problem that everybody has with Donald Trump. Donald Trump forces unforced errors. He creates unforced errors. He messes up. And then he won't say, whoops, my bad. He won't say, whoops, I screwed up. That wasn't good. And that's what everybody hates about Donald Trump, right? So if that's what we're hating about Trump, people on the left, we need to be able to do it. You need to be able to do it. Not me. I'm not on the left. We need to be able to do it in this instance. We need to be able to say this was a screw up. This shouldn't have happened. And I don't know. Maybe they'll be able to say it. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I hope so. I do want to take you just really quickly back to what happens. Give me 1 second. Okay, I want you to hear what Kristi Noem has to say about Padilla afterwards.
The White House, but not with me to express concern. Operations, conversations with the White House, but not with me to express concern. Operations, what they look like here in LA, and numbers, information we can get him. He was especially concerned about prosecutions that I'll turn over to the Department of Justice. But, he and I are probably not going to agree 90% of things. But we both had left that room recognizing that if conversations that will get to better results. And there was a few things in there we agreed on. And I informed him on the president's opinion and the president's executive authorities that he's exercising. And I am glad we took the time to do it.
And what was he saying to you when you guys were in that room?
He just said that he wanted to ask some questions about our operations. He said everybody agrees that we should be going after criminals and those who perpetuate violence. We don't like to see what we see happen in here in LA, downtown activities. What bothers me a little bit about it is that the leaders here in Los Angeles keep trying to act like the destruction we're seeing in LA is just a small little section and we shouldn't be concerned about it then. It's almost like they're saying it's okay if 10% of LA gets destroyed. Why do we not care about every single citizen here? Why would we not want to stop that violence from happening in downtown LA and make sure we're protecting those small business owners and those families too? So the president just really believes that this country is a country of laws. And the only way that we pursue opportunity and success is if everybody gets treated the same. We don't get to decide.
All right, so I heard from another, and this is real choppy, so we're going to stop that. But I heard from another interview that she had done that she said that they swapped phone numbers. So she said, I'm willing to sit down and talk to you. I'm willing to talk to you on the phone. Call me up. I think she even made kind of a joke like, you don't need to barge into my press conferences or something like that. But they kind of joked about it. And they went on, and like she says, we're probably not going to agree on 90% of the things, but there were things that we agreed on. We did give phone numbers. I said I would be willing to talk with him more in the future, and we need to have these talks. And they did talk. So at the end of the day, he accomplished some of what he wanted to do. But again, it's not like she was like, to hell with him, I'm throwing him out, and nothing. She was willing to talk to him. She even said in the press conference that she didn't know who that was when he first was coming in or whatever, and that whatever, but how he did it wasn't the way to do it. And it's like, yeah, that's just common sense. I'm shocked what we saw, but on the Republican side, I'm asking the liberals to say, okay, this was a screw up. We need to be like, all right, it was a screw up and everything's okay. We'll move past it, and we move past it. We don't need to make this a big thing for the next however long. We'll see. We heard what Schiff had to say. We heard what Jeffries had to say. We know what they're working on doing with it. It doesn't need to be done that way. That's the thing. And it takes nuance, and it takes everybody understanding that we have to look at each little bits of pieces of what was going on here, and rather than just what they're trying to package as a whole package. Oh, this is a First Amendment thing. Look how he was treated. If they're going to treat him this way, they're going to treat you this way. Well, yeah, they are going to treat you that way if you barge in to an FBI building, into a press conference, yelling at whoever's talking, not identifying yourself. Yes, you will be treated that way each and every time, and you should be. All right, now on to Delaware County. So Delaware County. Let me go look at I haven't looked at the comments once. Let me go look at what we got with the comments. I imagine people are losing their minds. Do. Al Franken. Isn't Al Franken dead? I think Al Franken died. Maybe he'd be Al Frankenstein. We can bring him back then. Kate spit some shit out of her mouth of that at that point. All right, I'm not going to look at the comments because they're weird. I'll go back and look at the end of this. Delaware County Vote Center. Okay, let's apply some nuance lube to the vote center debate. So everyone's aware, for the people that are not from Delaware County, the people that are not from Indiana, how we have been voting here in the great state of Indiana, specifically in Delaware County, since the beginning of time has been, we have Delaware County, which is, it's not a square. It's not a perfect square. It's, what is not a square? A rectangle? Rectangle. That's a weird word. I always forget what a rectangle is. So I think Delaware County is a rectangle. It's not a triangle. It's got to be a rectangle. Delaware County is more like a rectangle. It's a little taller than it is wide, but not by much. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 12 townships in Delaware County. We've got the city of Muncie. We've got Gaston, Eaton, Albany, Daleville, Yorktown, Selma, Cowan, although Cowan's not an actual town, it's there. And then the Ball State area that is inside the city of Muncie. And basically throughout all of Delaware County, over the years, back in the 70s, the 80s, 60s, probably 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we had 100 precincts. These 100 precincts were scattered all over Delaware County, and you had to go to your precinct polling place to vote. If you lived in precinct 65, you couldn't go to precinct 50. You had to go to precinct 65. That's the way it was. And then sometime back in the 2010s, maybe 2005, 2008, 2009, 2010, places started going to vote centers. Vote centers is where they would cut the number of precincts in half, but they would grow the size of the center. They would spread them out a little bit better all over the county. And then what could happen is you could go into any vote center you want to vote. So if you live in Albany, up in the northeast side, but you work in Daleville, you don't have to drive to your polling place in Albany. You could drive all the way down to Daleville and vote down there. The very first time I ever had or knew anything about vote centers, I lived in Randolph County. I lived in Winchester at the time. I lived in Winchester, and I voted in Winchester in the 2011 city. 2012 was off. 2013, 2014, 2015. I voted in all of those. When I ran for council in 2015, we still had vote centers. So through 4 elections, we voted in Winchester, Randolph County, in our regular precinct areas where we had to go. I lived in precinct 3. I had to go to precinct 3. That was it. Well, in 2016, during our off year, they talked about doing vote centers, and I was against vote centers. And I went to the presentation they put on, and I asked questions, and I talked, and I listened, and I was against them. I was way against vote centers. And at the end of that presentation, I was in favor of vote centers. They went through, they put them through, and they easily went through in Winchester. No issue, Randolph County, they put them through. So the next time we voted in 2017, I woke up. I always worked in Muncie. I lived in Winchester. I still worked in Muncie. So instead of waking up and going the opposite direction from where I would go to work to go to my polling place to vote at like 7 o'clock in the morning, instead of doing that, I put my shoes on, put everything on, got in the car, and I started driving towards Muncie. And I passed through farmland. I could have voted in farmland. I could have voted at any of the places in Winchester along the way, but I got to Parker City, which was the last town. It had one vote center there that was the last vote center in the county before I got into Delaware County. I pulled over in Parker. I walked in. I said, hey, I live, gave them my address, gave them my ID, did my thing. I told them what precinct I was. They gave me the card. I walk over. It has all of my people, didn't have anyone else from the county. It had the people that I should have voted on. And I pressed my buttons. I did all my thing. I voted, and I got to work, and it was easy. And I was like, cool, this is the best way to do it. And so that's what we did. It made things quicker on election night, in my opinion, because you've got less centers that you're waiting on, less precincts. And so when I, about 2017, 18, I knew Delaware County was talking about it. I didn't live in Muncie or Delaware County, but I was highly supportive of it and told the people over in Muncie and Delaware County, you guys need to do it. You need to do it. You need to do it. And back then, the Republicans were pushing for it. The Republicans wanted it. No. Excuse me. Well, the Republican clerk wanted it, but the Republican Party would always kill it at the election, because how you get vote centers is the Board of Elections would vote on it. The Board of Elections would vote on it. No, sorry. It was the Republican clerk that wanted it, and it was the Democrats that would kill it. They would kill it, and they had this long history of this. Secretly, the Republican chair didn't want it either. Victor Whitehead never wanted it. The ones before them never wanted it, but there were other people in the party that wanted it. When I moved back to Muncie, Rick Spangler, who I don't always agree with, this has been something that he's pushed since he's been clerk. He's been clerk twice. This has been at least 8 years. He tries to get it and they just never could get it. He could never get it to work. He could never get everybody on the same page. Then the last time they talked about it, it was Democrat Ashley Nichols, the daughter of Phil Nichols, who voted no. And it just shocked everybody. Why did she vote no? She voted no. Everybody lost their shit because everyone thought this is the time we get it. Well, here's the reason she voted no. She voted no because state law says that in order for you to do this, you have to have all of the places picked out. You have to have them all locked in. They have to agree to it. We all have to agree to it, and everybody has to be on the up and up. It's got to be on the list. It's got to be locked in. Well, they didn't have a couple of the places locked in, and they wanted them to just go vote and let Rick then afterwards go say where they would be, which technically I don't think is legal, but it definitely is something that I understand why the Democrats wouldn't like that. Because if he goes to these places after they vote on this and these places say, no, we don't want to do it, then he just gets to pick where they go. And it's like maybe he could put them in a more Republican area or whatever. I could see the Democrats having a problem with that. So I didn't give Ashley a bunch of shit for what she did. I agreed. You don't, yeah, I promise we'll do it right. We'll do it right. And then vote on it, and then you're stuck. So she killed it. Well, it died. It went away. That's that. Now, here we are, 6 months in. This has been a topic. It's been coming up. we have a different chairman on the Republican side. We have a different chairman on the Democrat side. And things have been kind of wishy-washy. They've been kind of crazy. It's been nuts. So now Rick wants to get this done. And I agree with Rick, and I think Rick needs to get this done. I hope he gets it done. I'm not a big fan of Rick. Rick and I have battled for the last little bit. But I agree with Rick. This needs to be done, and hopefully he can get this done. Well, everybody's favorite or not so favorite Democrat Party chairman, Andrew Dale, put out an op-ed in the newspaper and it published at 5:00 this morning. And Andrew Dale's op-ed reads like this: "It's time to pass Delaware County's vote center plan and call out the obstruction." Now, that title, all right, I'll read it and we'll get back to the title. Key points. Delaware County Democrats advocate for a 26-location vote center model to replace the current 78 precinct-based system. Disagreements arise over early voting locations, with Republicans proposing changes Democrats believe violate Indiana law. The Democratic chairman accuses Republican leadership of obstructing the vote center plan and hindering the vote access. On March 1st, I'm reading Andrew Dale's letter. So any I say here is going to be Andrew Dale. On March 1st, I was honored to become the chairman of the Delaware County Democratic Party, serving our volunteers, precinct committee members, elected officials, and candidates, as well as the voters of Delaware County. It's a responsibility I take seriously. For me, a political party isn't just about winning elections. It's about building a better future for our community through trust, engagement, and advocacy. That's why I'm calling for the immediate adoption of Delaware County's long overdue vote center plan, and why I'm naming the barriers to progress. Republican Party Chairman Tim Overton and other members of the Republican leadership. The proposed plan replaces our outdated precinct-based system with 78 polling places with a streamlined 26-location vote center model. Under this system, any registered voter can cast his or her ballot at any vote center in the county on Election Day. This flexibility is especially helpful for working families, students, and people with transportation barriers, and it saves taxpayers money. Indiana law requires a vote center county to offer at least 2 early voting sites, no fewer than 1 at any one of the 26 vote center locations, and 1 as a designated office of the circuit court clerk. The current plan that I have proposed meets this requirement with early voting sites at the downtown county building and the First Presbyterian Church. These locations were selected thoughtfully. First Presbyterian Church serves the Ball State University Ball Memorial Hospital corridor, a vital employment, medical, and student hub. The downtown county building has long been trusted early voting site that can also easily handle high volumes of voters, especially during high voter turnout elections like 2020 and 2024. By April 2024, the bipartisan Delaware County Election Board has reached a tentative agreement. We were prepared to formally vote on May 8th. But just 3 days before that vote, County Clerk Rick Spangler, a Republican, abruptly canceled the meeting. The reason? Republican Chairman Overton indicated that several elected officials who had not previously been part of the process wanted to revisit the plan. This also confirmed to me by way of voicemail and the emails from Overton. Unlike the Democratic side, where just two of us, myself, Andrew Dale, and Dan Gibson, my Delaware County Election Board appointee, have worked in good faith, the Republican leadership seems to be operating with an ever-shifting cast of decision makers. There appears to be a lot of cooks in the GOP kitchen, but no clear direction. Here's what the Republicans now want. They want to eliminate the downtown county building as the county's required early vote site. They want to add the Muncie Fieldhouse as the designated office for the circuit court clerk for early voting. And they want to exclude the First Presbyterian Church near Ball State and IU Health Ball Memorial Hospital from early voting, despite repeated requests for explanation, and no one ever received any. Let's be clear. These proposals are not just counterproductive. I believe these proposals are not compliant within Indiana law, which requires no fewer than 2 early voting sites, one of which must be among the 26 vote centers that the vote center plan, when approved by an election board, would have by complete in all legal agreements, meaning the entirety of the plan is approved and that the key components are not left to be included later. The Democratic Party's position is straightforward. Approve the 26 proposed early vote centers, approve the First Presbyterian Church as an early vote site, open at least 2 Saturdays preceding each election day as permitted and required under the law. If needed for a compromise, allow the Muncie Fieldhouse to replace the county building as the circuit court clerk's early voting location. In my opinion, moving away from the county building is both physically and functionally imprudent and unnecessarily confusing to voters. We shouldn't be debating a plan this basic and balanced. The numbers speak for themselves. Since 2012, Delaware County's average voter turnout has been just 39%. If an Indiana Fever or Pacers player shot 39% from the free throw line, they wouldn't be on the court. So why are local Republicans making it harder for people to vote? This vote center plan, which includes both county early voting sites and the First Presbyterian Church as an early voting site, is lawful, ready to be implemented, and responsive to the needs of Delaware County voters. What is not adopted, what it's not is adopted because Overton and other members of the Republican leadership are standing in the way. In fact, on June 9, I emailed Rick Spangler and copied Tim Overton requesting our Delaware County clerk to call a meeting of the Delaware County Election Board to ensure that we were all on the same page regarding what lawfully compliant and balanced vote center plan is to embody for the public to be informed and also to be able to voice their opinions. And the Republican Party chairman immediately and unilaterally dismissed my request, stating that to meet, we must first have an agreement in place. Governing outside of the public's view is not governing. That's simply orchestration, and in this case, tantamount to voter disenfranchisement. I can't agree to a vote center plan that is non-compliant with Indiana law, that isn't fair to both Democrats and Republican voters of Delaware County. We must stop the political games, comply with the Indiana law, and adopt this plan well before the 2026 election season begins. And that's the letter from Andrew Dale. Now, almost instantly, as soon as this went out, Republican talking heads from the party and candidates and others started pushing back against that op-ed. And the pushback that they were getting is like this. I want to let you hear some of this. All comments. Counselor Ryan Webb says, glad to see the Democrats are finally on board with vote centers, especially since it was the Democrats who torpedoed the last deal that we had in place approving the vote centers for Delaware County. I do appreciate the transparency from Mr. Dale, although I wish he would have shared his frustration last year when it was Democrats who were getting in the way of progress for the residents of Delaware County. Instead, he sat silently assuming an approval of that obstruction. Matt Kantz says, unsurprisingly, a fair early voting center is only available via the most inconvenient location to county voters, Ball State's campus, which is less than 1.5 miles from the other early voting center request, the county building or the field house. Since it's county voters that vote in higher numbers, please explain how putting an early vote center 1.5 miles from the other is hard, or is only fair and not hard to the one side of the aisle. County voters must drive to a polling location in every single election. They don't sit on a bus route or it's not walkable from their neighborhoods. And yet straight party votes in 2024 were 2-1 for Republican voters. Also, you conveniently left out nearly 20-year history of Democrats voting down vote centers year after year, costing the county tens of thousands of dollars year over year. But please tell us again how the Republicans keep vote centers from happening. Muncie City Mayor's communications director, Amber Green, says, anybody have that picture of the destroyed desk and office from the fit that the Dems threw last time they denied vote centers? And it wasn't the last time, it was several years ago, but that did happen. Shireen Wegley says, this is Rich. Andrew Dale, whining that the Republicans won't agree to vote centers when it's been the Delaware County Democratic Party that's shot it down repeatedly close for 20 years. We then have Nora Powell, city councilor for City of Muncie, says, just for clarification, Shireen, are you off work today? I'd be disappointed if Dan Ridenour's administrative assistant was speaking negatively on social media about a Muncie resident while on the clock, sitting at their desk in the mayor's office. Shireen says, didn't see any negative comments about a Muncie resident. Totally missing the point. If Shireen's work, her ass should not be commenting on this, period. So I would like to know, Shireen, were you at work? Same question to Amber Green. Same question to Amber Green. The insinuation that people can't have opinion about an article that's quite literally an opinion, good for me, but not for thee. Now, that was Amber's response, and that's not the issue. The issue is Shireen and Amber and everyone else can have all the opinions they want to have. They just can't have them while their ass is getting paid. Nora says, I'm not questioning the right of either of you, Shireen, or your opinions, Amber. I'm asking if you're posting these comments, which is slants negatively towards citizens while sitting at your desk in Mayor Ridenour's office. Shireen says, I think Amber and I both know our jobs well enough to know when we can and cannot post online, but thanks for your concern. Now, understand this. Shireen posted that at 4:55, which is when she should be on the clock. Amber's post was made at 12:18, which very seriously could be during lunch. Shireen has a post at 11:57. Maybe she's at lunch. Shireen's other post is at 9:13 a.m. Her ass should have been at work. Amber Green first makes a post at 10:55 a.m. These people are going to have to, answer for this, I think, in some of these cases. There's a couple of other David Williams says, glad to see the Uniparty not doing a damn thing as usual. Favorite comment on the post. I love it. I love it. Okay, now let me tell you what I think is happening here. Democrats have absolutely 1,000% been the stopping force behind this for the last 20 years. That's absolutely been the case. At the same time, there have been Republican leadership of the party, the chair, Victor Whitehead, and others who have stopped this. To be fair, that's not Tim Overton, and it's not Andrew Dale. I don't believe that you can blame Andrew Dale or Tim Overton for either of any of their predecessors. Andrew Dale and his Dan Gibson, his appointment to the election board, and Tim Overton and his appointment to the election board, which is still Pete Drum, they don't get the blame of the past people. Maybe Pete Drum gets some blame because he's been on the board for a while. But I understand why the Democrats are mad about that, because you can't blame them for what other leaders are doing. That's like blaming Trump for things that Biden's done. That's like blaming Dan for things that Dan Cannon did. That's like blaming the commissioners for the current commissioners in Delaware County for things that James King did, or things of that nature. So you can't do that. But whatever's going on currently about this meeting is nonsense. They cannot come up with the agreement until they meet. But what I can blame Tim Overton for, and what I will blame him for, is canceling this meeting. First of all, it's not Tim's decision. The election board is made up of Dan Gibson, the Democrat, Rick Spangler, the clerk, and Pete Drum, the Republican. Those three gentlemen need to decide they're going to have a meeting. They need to call a meeting, and they need to get this shit figured out. If Dan Ridenour or Matt Kantz or any other leadership want to have a say in what's going on, then they can have their ass at the meeting. They don't need to have it in back rooms of the Knights of Columbus or some bar or on a text message. They can do it during the meeting, during the day, at the county building, when we can all be there, when we can all be a part of it. Let this process play out in front of the people. Let this process play out in front of the people. Period. The nuance here is both the Democrats and the Republicans suck. And both the Democrats and the Republicans are at fault for why this has not been done. And all of the bullshit sycophants on both sides going back and forth trying to say, not us, it was them, not us, it was them, not. That does not help. Tell your people to pony up and to get a meeting going. Tim, why is there not a meeting going? Can we figure that out? Quit being a knob and tell your people to post a meeting. Rick, this is your baby. You want these vote centers, bro. Get this shit going. Tell Pete, I think he's the president. If he's the president, tell him to call a meeting. 48 hours. We could have a meeting by next Monday. We could have a meeting by next Wednesday. What is going on? If there's argument about where the places are, we can deal with it. It sounds like out of the 26, 24 of them are okay. Sounds like we have some question over 2. What we're going to do with the county building. Are we going to keep it at the county building, or are we going to move it to the field house? Are we going to have open voting, the center at First Presbyterian or not? Those are the 2 sticking points. Everything else is locked down. But in order for us to move forward, it all has to be locked down, and that cannot happen until we have a meeting. And I blame that on Pete Drum Rick Spangler and Dan Gibson, but it sounds like Dan Gibson wants a meeting. So I can't blame it on him. In this case, the Republicans are screwing this up. Why are we not having a meeting? We need to have a meeting. Let's just get a meeting. Let's get this done. Let's figure it out. Let's have it on the record. I'll come up there. Let's have it on the record in the commissioner's courtroom. Then they can live stream it. I can live stream it. Everybody can see it. We can digest it. We can talk about it, and we can figure it out from here. But what shouldn't be happening is Dan Ridenhour and Matt Kantz and Tony, the sheriff, and everybody, who thinks there's somebody now in the party because Tim Overton's not really a leader, and he's a figurehead with other leadership. It's kind of like what's going on in the Republican Party real quick is weird. We can talk about that another show, but this needs to take place in a meeting. Let's get it done. And it's that simple. There are 3 people. Call a freaking meeting. Doesn't matter what Tim wants. Call a meeting. Rick, you know how this goes. Call a meeting. Pete, call a meeting. Let's get going on this. Call a freaking meeting, and let's get this shit done. And that's all the nuance I have for tonight before I explode. All right. I think we got through it. I didn't look at any of the comments. I don't like it. I like looking at comments. We won't do this normally. I'll look at comments generally and see what you guys have to say. I will go back through the comments and I will answer any of you. And we can talk about everything that you guys liked and didn't like and all that. We'll see. But I hope you guys had a good show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you fought things out. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's weird kind of not knowing. Tonight's Thursday, which means we are normally going to be off Friday and Saturday. I hope we're off and we'll be back on Sunday, but I will tell you this. The only way that we will be here tomorrow, if we're here one time this weekend, it'll be tomorrow. Okay. We will be here tomorrow if I get the email from Henry County. If I get the email from Henry County tomorrow, we'll be here. If not, we'll see you Sunday. So if you want to know what goes on, oh yeah, all right, that's fine. That's fine. And chances are we won't be here. I don't look at them to send it, but if we are, whatever. So if you want to be notified if we go live, you need to subscribe and click the bell. While you're doing that, also hit the like, and we will either see you Sunday night, or if we get the email from Henry County, we'll be here tomorrow. So look, I'm telling you we won't be, but if we get the email, we will. So you just need to hit that bell and watch. Other than that, we'll see you Sunday evening. You guys take care of yourselves. God bless each and every one of you. Have a good weekend. I will be following this deal with Israel and Iran and I guess Iraq. I don't know if they really attacked Baghdad. If they did, that's crazy because they attacked Iraq and Iraq. 2 different places. That's pretty weird. I'll have to see what's going on there. If you want to follow what's going on or any of my posts about that, or if I post on social media about it, you're going to want to follow all of that stuff there for the Facebooks and the Twitters. I really wish more people would get on Twitter. I wish Facebook would stop being a thing and Twitter would be like the end all be all. I wish that would happen, but whatever. All right, you guys take care. God bless. Have a good evening, and we'll see you Sunday, maybe tomorrow, probably just Sunday. All right, goodbye.